Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely. And parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/getstarted. That's GREENLIGHT.com/getstarted.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts, because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Noah, and I'm going to be ringleading this outfit, but I can't do it without a few accomplices. First up, I'm going to need a couple of heavies, Tom and Eli.
Hey, we are heavy, Noah, but we are not a couple.
Yet. You can't run for that long because of the heaviness.
It's my thought exactly. And also joining us tonight, the numbers guy and the guy who goes, I don't know, boss, Keith and Cecil.
Okay, I'm just flipping this coin over and over. I don't really know any probability numbers or anything.
All I know is I know nothing. And now that I say that, I realize Socrates wasn't a fucking rat. That's pretty baller.
Now, obviously, look, this is a lovely podcast that you've got here for your commute. It'd be a shame if something were to happen to it. And if you'd like to learn how to keep that from happening, be sure to stick around to the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Eli, what person, place, concept, phenomenon, event, or thing will we be talking about today?
We'll be talking about Al Capone.
All right. Cecil, you read the indictments. Are you ready to sing like a canary?
It'd be a boring podcast if I just pled the fifth, Noah.
Right. All right. So who was Al Capone?
But committed to the bit.
Yeah, would be committed, definitely. Alphonse Gabriel Capone was a first-generation American born to Italian immigrant parents in 1899. He was one of 9 children, and his father was a barber, and they lived in Brooklyn. It appears that Capone was a bright student, and he was doing pretty well in school until he slapped his teacher around in the 6th grade. I guess back then they would just send you to the principal's office to get an ass beating your own, and that's exactly what happened. Al left school after his principal thrashed him, and he started working shortly thereafter.
These days, Al Capone would just call himself a rapper and go on Facebook Live to address his haters while still living with his parents. So it was a different time.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, Cecil. Hey, man, just for reference, was this when America was great? Was it when men were men and 12-year-olds could drop out of school after getting beaten by the authorities? Was that?
It's hard to pinpoint that.
Yeah, it is hard to pinpoint. Yeah. Al did try many careers before he settled on organized crime, though.
It does make it easy to try on a lot of different hats when you start off buying them in the kids section.
Yeah,
so.
no.
Sure.
You grow out of them so quick at that age. Yeah.
Yeah. He was a pin setter at a bowling alley. Also worked at a munitions factory, presumably with a different kind of pin. He was a cloth cutter at a bookbinder, and he was also worked at a candy store. Al even played some semi-pro baseball for a couple of years from 1916 to 1918. But he was also a kid who grew up in a rough part of town, and most of his childhood, he was getting in trouble and joining various gangs. So eventually, that would lead him to his lifelong career as a gangster.
Okay, being a baseball player during that time, that's pretty good mobster training too, though, right? Hitting people with bats, rigging World Series. But yeah,
no,
I got
also
an original joke too. You are.
One story of Al's youth that I found was that Capone witnessed the theft of a washboard in his neighborhood, and the victim was an elderly widow. He gathered a bunch of kids together to get it back, and they found the young rapscallions that stole it, and he and his gang kicked the shit out of them and took it back. And at this point, his Italian roots took over, and he kind of organized a victory triumph.
Really hoping it's not a bunga bunga party, because that's what it sounds like you're saying.
He marched down the street
kids
in a parade-like fashion, to let everyone know what kind of hero he was.
How Caesarean of him.
And this sort of theater was commonplace in Capone's life, as he liked to portray himself as something of a Robin Hood character. So, like I said, Capone belonged to a number of gangs as a young man. The Junior 40 Thieves, the Bowery Boys, the Brooklyn Rippers, and finally, the 5 Points Gang. It was in this gang that Al Capone was introduced and started working for a racketeer named Frankie Yale. Yale owned a Coney Island bar called the Harvard Inn. Pun intended,
Seriously?
I guess. Yeah.
Nice.
And Al Capone, the 200-pound, 5'11" street thug, was his doorman and odd job lackey.
Okay, sorry, this doesn't really matter. I keep seeing AI Capone and thinking like artificial intelligence. So that's one.
No, Capone never stole that in Michigan. Come on. Man.
It's an awfully nice information ecosystem. Be a shame if something were to happen to it.
Yeah.
Capone, one day while at the Harvard Inn, came to the table of two-bit hood Frankie Galluccio or Galluccio. I don't know. Galluccio sounds a little like Pinocchio, so let's call him Galluccio. He was out that evening with his girlfriend and his sister. Al comes up to his sister and said, now this is a quote from a historian. It might not be real. It might be apocryphal, but he said something in the vein of, quote, honey, you have a beautiful ass, and I mean that as a compliment, end quote. Well, Galluccio did not take it as a compliment as it was intended, and he went after Al with a straight razor. He sliced...
Al wasn't even complimenting Al Galluccio's ass.
Yeah, right.
He wasn't even his girlfriend's ass. It's his sister's ass.
So,
All right.
defending
How could
his
that not
sister's
be a
honor,
compliment?
Tom, he
Right.
slices Al a couple of times on the face, and
Did he think she had a bad ass? I'm
You're
just-
right. That's the thing. Yeah.
She's like,
what was
no,
he disputing?
you give me the lie, sir. You give me the lie.
her with faint praise.
But anyway, he slices Al a couple of times and gives him a cut big enough for a dozen stitches. From that point on, he was given the name Scarface, and he hated this name and would try to cover his face with powder.
Al Pacino did the same thing when he was
Actually. Oh, I thought you were talking about AI Pacino. My bad.
He would insist on getting photographed from one side of his body to hide the scar. He also claimed several times that it was a war wound.
Okay, so then I guess my question for you, Cecil, is why your essay is about Al Capone and not feminist icon Frankie G. You know what I'm talking about.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I feel like being the guy that gave Al Capone his scar bumps you up to 3-bit hood minimum, right?
Yeah. So he really liked another nickname, and this was for Snappy Dresser in the 1920s, that I genuinely think should make a comeback, Snorky. So
Nice.
I guess Snorky Dresser Al was flamboyant, and he wore very expensive, colorful suits. He would gravitate toward bright yellows, lime greens, light purples.
What? I'm sorry, I have a hard time believing a suit could be both expensive and bright yellow.
I don't think anyone on our cast
Steve Harvey would like to disagree
has
with
the,
you.
I was gonna say, I don't think anybody on our cast has the skin tone to really rock
Snorky
a yellow
Harvey? Yeah.
a yellow
Good guy.
suit. I think there are people who
Steve
do.
Harvey rocked him hard.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm just nowhere near that snorky. Yeah.
He's looking good.
He also wore a pinky ring that cost $50,000, Italian glove silk underwear, and a cream-colored fedora. This sort of dress was similar to Al's attitude. Many gangsters tried to keep a low profile and not be in the limelight, but Al Capone was very different and loved to be the center of attention and to be talked about in the papers.
Sure, and a pinky ring made of, I guess, antimatter is definitely going to attract the eye, get a little attention. $50K in 1920 is like $750,000 right now.
Jesus
I had to
Christ.
ride in a little sidecar next to him wherever he walked. It was very impractical.
Cecil, I have no idea what Italian glove silk underwear is, but it is now
Right?
the only thing I want in my
Right?
life.
That's all I ever want now. Yeah.
That's it.
1919, Al Capone was introduced to Johnny Torrio, who was the second in command in a gang from Chicago. Torrio...
Sorry, I'm just picturing an Italian man who comes with it and he cradles for you. He just holds whatever you want him to hold. I don't know.
With his nice silk gloves. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that makes sense.
Torrio worked for Big Jim Colosimo as an enforcer. Big Jim was running an extortion, loan sharking, gambling, and prostitution ring in Chicago, and Al came on as an enforcer as well, working in a brothel. It's there that people believe Al Capone contracted syphilis, although Al had many prostitution operations throughout his career, and it could have happened later in his life. Pin in that syphilis thing, though, for later.
Ooh, you're not supposed to do that, Cecil. You just take a pill now. It's just a 4-day course.
So now Al and Johnny, they hit it off really well, and Capone learned a lot from Torrio. At some point, Johnny suggests Al goes to night school to rid him of his New York accent. I guess at the time there were accent classes at night school. No idea. I don't know. Anyway,
I hope he should have done that with his accent in Scarface too, to get rid of it. That was rough.
I hope it was an entirely unrelated class, Cecil, like typing. He's just confused why he's sitting there. Doesn't get to help at all.
I don't know why I'm sitting there next to a half asleep Tom. This guy seems like he's having a really rough time.
So anyway, he goes to night school. And also, this is a great time to point out that everyone who worked with Capone throughout, they thought he was a very smart guy. Sure, he was literally evil, but most of the people talked about him said that if he lived a legitimate life, he would have been like a CEO or some other bootstrap daydream.
Okay. So like ethically, it's a wash.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Well, and we know how honest employees are about their bosses when said bosses have the tendency to murder people for disloyalty. So yeah, we're getting straight.
That's true too. That's true too.
CEO Capone just walks into the gang hideout carrying a sink. Hey, everybody. Our new gang is called X. I'm rebranding. It's called X.
Oh,
why do you have a sink?
Does that mean we could send him to a school to lose the accent?
Of all the things we want him to lose, the accent is so low down on the list.
So Big Jim Colosimo was happy with his current offering to the underbelly of Chicago's crime scene. He was an unambitious pimp, and when Prohibition went into effect in 1920, his underboss, Johnny Torrio, saw a chance for a business expansion. Big Jim rebuffed suggestions by Torrio that the operation could start bootlegging, and Torrio responded by calling his friends in New York to take Big Jim out so he could be the shot caller. Frankie Yale, the bar owner hitman I mentioned earlier, came out and ambushed Big Jim at his restaurant, the Colosimo Cafe on Chicago's South Side. It's also suggested that Al Capone was the trigger man, but no one was ever charged with a crime. With Big Jim out of the way, Torrio opened up a new wing of the business, shipping and producing illegal booze.
Moral of the story, maybe take the time to compliment Sandwich the things I suggest in our business meetings, gentlemen. I'm just saying.
Okay. Okay. I don't know. Eli, I feel like in terms of knowing hitmen, I'm either leading this group or tied for the lead with Cecil. It's one of those two.
That's fair.
At this point, the shipments of alcohol were coming from Canada by boat to Chicago. The gang was also making its own beer to sell to local establishments. The salespeople would go to a bar and then they would tell the owner that it is very much in their best interest to buy the beer from them. If the owner refused, they would pressure them again. The third refusal would normally be some sort of damage to the establishment, often windows getting blown out, but it could be a firebombing or something similar. And then they would come back and they would offer loan money for the damages and sign them up for shipments of beer.
Okay, I like how they did racketeering with a system like a scoldy parent. It was like, I'm going to count to 3 over multiple days. And they're like, Al Capone comes back on day 3 being like, 2.5. Or I racketeer you.
And it's still easier than canceling most gym memberships.
Right.
Gotta say you live out of town now. That's the key. The alcohol bootlegging in Chicago was dangerous, with lots of gangs vying for territory. It was in 1922 that Al Capone's boss, Johnny Torrio, decided to get all the gangs together to come to a peace agreement. The boss suggested that there was enough business in Chicago for everyone, and the gangs abided by this for a couple years, all making profit and eschewing violence to solve their disputes with each other. At this point, Torrio and Capone operation was bringing in about $100 million a year, which in today's currency is about $1.85 billion.
Jesus.
Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, it was peaceful, but inter-gang shit talk reached a real nadir during this time. Like, the worst thing you could threaten to do was file a grievance with the assistant to the regional director of over-gang operations and shit. It was a sad
I'm not
time.
doing any more trust falls. I'm just going to say it right now. I'm not doing them again. What if there was to be a strongly worded letter from HR?
this mugging could have been an email.
Yeah. Oh, he put a 15-minute meeting on my calendar. I hope he's just going to kill me.
Al Capone set out to start a protection racket in Chicago that covered people involved in illegal activity, giving them immunity from law enforcement. It said at times during the height of Capone's power that he bribed half the law enforcement in the city, and he would use his bribe connections to get people off charges, including himself. 1922, after a night out drinking, he's driving and he's slammed into the back of a taxi cab. He gets out of the car and he waved a gun at the driver of the taxi cab who was injured. The cops who were nearby apprehended Capone, and while he's getting shoved into the car and taken in, he boasted that he would fix this thing. And he did. Within a few days, the charges against Al were dropped and he was free.
All right. Well, with the assurance that though he'd lost the accent, he kept that patent New York belligerency. We're going to take a quick break for some apropos of nothing.
I like that.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming. I have gathered you, the heads of all the gangs of the city of Chicago, to make you a proposal.
A proposal? Sorry, Tony, you're not my type, so I don't know.
Very funny, Luigi.
Classic.
For too long, we've been at each other's throats, scrapping for a piece of the pie when there's plenty for everybody. What I'm suggesting is that we declare a truce, live and let live, and we all end up a whole lot richer.
Yeah.
Whoa,
makes
wow.
sense.
That's a good idea,
Also, it's become obvious to me that since the Industrial Revolution, we are now capable of production far beyond our needs. These means of production must be controlled by the people, and their surplus must be put towards the greater good.
I'm sorry. What does this have to do with crime?
Further, the idea of the solitary family unit, recent as it is, must be abolished. The chains of monogamy, a construct created explicitly for the sexual enslavement of women, must be cast off, as must our archaic notions of heteronormativity. We must return to what
What?
and who we were meant to be,
I
a
don't know what's
tribe,
happening.
a family,
I didn't
interconnected
understand
and
what we're
woven
doing.
crime
together
stuff.
only by love and mutual support.
Is he
Through
smart?
this, though this will be
No,
uncomfortable
talking
at
at least.
first, it is the only way for us to truly thrive. In time, Luigi, you may find I am your type.
Yeah.
Could we just do the crime truce thing? That last thing, it seemed like a little much.
Yeah, we could just do the crime truce thing.
Ah,
Oh,
right,
thank
just
God.
have it.
I'm
okay.
worried about this. Yeah. I don't want to do that.
So, do you want to get a drink sometime? Or?
Not now, Luigi. The moment has passed.
Okay.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely. And parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/getstarted. That's GREENLIGHT.com/getstarted.
And we're back. When we last left off, everybody was strong-arming local business owners into selling tainted booze that often blinded their customers peacefully. But the good times never last, do they,
They
Sizzle?
never do, Noah. They never do. In 1925, the wiki claims that there were attempts on the lives of both Johnny Torrio and Al Capone. I can't tell you anything about the one on Capone except this line, quote, "An ambush in January 1925 left Capone shaken but unhurt," end quote. 12 days after this attempt, Torrio was coming home and was shot several times. The North Side Gang, run by Dino O'Banion and his underbosses, Jaime Weiss and Bugs Moran, were responsible. While recovering, Torrio made plans to kill O'Banion, and he was on trial. Torrio was on trial for bootlegging at the time.
Okay, I am feeling Al Capone's intelligence here. Apparently, every mobster's name was either like an F. Scott Fitzgerald anti-Semitic stereotype or a cartoon with a giant cigar. So,
Right?
nobody
Yeah,
noticed
options.
just like fucking Alan making hundreds of millions of dollars on Crown Royal and PBR. That's awesome.
And I'm trying to imagine how dire the situation must be to have to resort to drinking the Crown Royal.
Oh, I know.
Oh,
God.
Horrible.
Apocalypse.
We talk about this a lot.
If it's bootleg, you still get the little velvet bag, though. Because
That's the most. That's
yeah.
the only reason.
there's just
I have
all these
so many
gangsters
of
with
those.
dice in a bag, just like playing D&D.
So Al Capone hires Frankie Yale from New York to come out and kill O'Banion.
Okay, the name place combinations in this story are a fucking nightmare, Cecil.
Right.
Can I get a prescript?
And the story goes that O'Banion was a florist and was working in his shop that day.
Sure.
Frankie and two other men come in, and when O'Banion shook Yale's hand, Yale held it, and the other two men unloaded pistols at point blank range into the florist mob boss. Yes, I said those in the right order. Florist mob boss. The North Side Gang then started a gang war called the Beer Wars that would last several years and claim hundreds of lives.
Okay, I wonder how good a florist he was, right? I feel like somebody was like, hey, I know O'Banion's a stone cold killer, but the lilac really does make the irises pop, right? Like, I think he's really good at this.
Well, and you got to figure the flowers for your grave retorts, they just write themselves.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
I like it. I get the
But then he
combo.
takes too long and you're like, I'm sorry, $70? Did you say $70?
We could
really
come
are
to some
criminal.
sort of arrangement.
Ah, there it is. We
Brilliant.
found it.
In 19...
Mum's the word. I don't know why I keep going. Stupid.
In 1924, a new mayor was elected, and he happened to be a law and order mayor. So Al Capone set up shop in Cicero, which is a suburb of Chicago. With Torria retired and in prison, Al Capone became the new boss of Chicago's South Side Gang at the age of 26. They rigged the Cicero election to have a favored ally in the mayoral seat. They opened 160 gambling and 123 saloons in the small suburb of 60,000 people.
Jesus Christ. Well, a chicken in every pot and a roulette wheel in every home.
Yeah, right. I love it because like there had to be kids that grew up there at that time and just assumed that that's how Earth was, right? It's amazing.
One local reporter, Robert St. John, wrote about the takeover of the police and politics in Cicero, and he tried to expose the corruption. He detailed the brothels, illegal gambling, and alcohol operations. This, of course, made him an enemy of Al Capone. One morning, on his way to the office, he sees a large black car speeding toward him. A group of men get out, armed with billy clubs, blackjacks, and woolen socks filled with bars of soap. And so he laid down in the fetal position, and they beat him into unconsciousness. And when he wakes up in the hospital, and then he checks himself out, he discovered that a man with a scar had already paid his hospital bill.
Okay, I feel like if the guy you're supposed to beat up as like a mob warning does the fetal position, there's a moment where everyone's like, do we still do it? It feels like this moment's ruined, right? Like we can't, he's in the fetal position.
St. John went to the police with the details about who beat him up, one of whom he recognized as the brother of Al Capone. The police tell him to come back the next day, so he does. When he arrives, they send him into a room with an already waiting Al Capone.
Jesus Christ.
Capone offers St. John a wad of cash to stop writing stories and exposing his operations. Apparently, St. John walked out of the room without taking any of the money, but it really didn't matter because Capone had already bought a controlling stock in the newspaper and he was removed from this journalistic endeavor.
All right, look, I know Jeff Bezos owning the Washington Post is different. But is it?
I mean, yeah, I would be entirely unafraid of Jeff Bezos with a billy club. I would be, yeah, I'd be like,
Fair.
cool, I'm going to take that from you.
I want it on record that if anyone offers me a wad of cash after having previously beat me unconscious, I am walking out of that room with the cash.
No kidding.
Yeah, so
no
did
kidding.
that guy.
Rick
That
Done
guy
deal.
took the cash. That was a
No,
lie.
Done deal.
100% lied.
Yeah.
100% lied. Yeah.
Also, you don't have to beat me unconscious first.
Yeah,
And if I'm in a room
You know what,
and somebody
Noah?
offers me a wad of cash,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would fuck it. If they came at me with bars as soap and woolen socks, I would spike my fucking typewriter on the ground. Are you kidding me?
Just a guy with a scar. A guy could have a Band-Aid and be like, you need to take, I'd be like, yep, taking the money. Yep.
Look, he's offered to give you a wad of cash to not work. That is the dream. That's the dream.
That's the dream. On a
You won
regular
as a
basis,
reporter.
we
Yeah.
change our careers because of mean emails people send us. We all know which side of the bread we're buttered on. You guys want to start exposing the mafia as our podcast and try to get paid off? Maybe beat up and then paid off? Either way, I'm good.
I bet we could expose shit Jeff Bezos is doing. Sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
On May 8th of that year, Al Capone's accountant, Greasy Thumb Jack Cusack.
What is
That's
that?
a sweet name.
That's the fucking best name.
That's a sweet name.
Better
for
be
an
on his
account.
fucking accountancy business card.
Greasy Thumb Jack Cusack came to Al with a problem. He was getting roughed up by a local bootlegger.
Boy, you gotta figure that the greasy thumb probably made it really hard to count money. Gee, that poor bastard. What a terrible career choice.
Capone found out who was smacking around his bookkeeper, and he shot him in the face point blank several times.
Jesus.
Oh, Al.
He did it in front of 3 witnesses, too, and they couldn't remember a lot of details about the killing. Al fled, and then after a while, he turned himself in, but no charges stuck, and he was let free. He also, a year later, went to New York to see his friend Frankie Yale, and like for a gift, he killed 3 people there for him. And again, no one could find out any evidence against him, so he wasn't charged, and they let him go free.
Okay, now I'm picturing Al Capone and Frankie Yale in like a vacation montage, right? They're murdering people on a Ferris wheel. They're murdering people while they share a big cotton candy. They're murdering people looking out over a dock in a sunset in 2 different bathtubs.
They walk out of Bloomingdale's with bags full of dead people that they killed. They spin around. Yeah.
It's like,
Let me tell you about it.
it's one of those big Coney Island dogs. They're eating both ends at the same time and they kiss in the middle. It's just amazing. All right. I had already mentioned that Al Capone loved the good life and he spent a lot of money. He had bought a house on the coast in Florida for $40,000 cash, and then he spent over $100,000 fixing this place up to his specifications.
Or 2 pinky rings.
Yeah. He comes up with a Crown Royal bag and just dumps 2 pinky rings out in the grass. Yeah.
How many
will
pinky
be
rings for this
expecting
house would it cost is my question for you.
He also rode around in essentially an armored car. It was a $20,000 limousine that was completely bulletproof, except the tires, I guess. And then you could remove the back window of the car and fire out at people trailing you.
Okay, yeah, impressive. But he did also leave that dealership with the undercoating and the extended warranty. So
It does inflate the
you
price
hate
a
to
little.
see
You're
it.
right. You're right.
Yeah, I would ask if you could write that off on his taxes, but that's a bit of a spoiler, I guess. So I'll save
The
that one.
spoiler. The spoiler.
But actually, Cecil,
Yeah.
can't you shoot out the back of most windows? I mean, is that really an added
It was
feature?
bulletproof. It was bulletproof,
ones,
Tom.
yeah.
It was bulletproof.
If you have a
Armored car-
bulletproof window, wouldn't you want like a little hole the size of your gun and not just
Oh,
you
that's
remove
smart.
the whole thing?
I'll tell you, you sound smarter than Al Capone, who could have been a CEO, by the way. I just want to point that out.
Sorry, now I'm picturing 1920s gangster Heath trying to drill the perfect size hole while Tom is killed inside his bulletproof car. Dang, dang, dooming. Spink, spank, spooming.
There's a little slidey window that's also made of bulletproof, right? And then the hole, it exposes the hole.
There
And then
you
you
go.
put your gun out.
You own 2 companies
Just pay
in the
attention.
mafia now.
Put some effort into your murder.
So armored cars can certainly help keep you safe, but you have to get out of them from time to time. So one day, Al's enjoying a little midday meal at the Hawthorne Hotel in Cicero, and a convoy of 10 black cars came by, and they unloaded 5,000 rounds of ammunition into the building in an attempt to kill Al
It's
Capone.
aggressive.
It was around this time that the gangsters in Chicago, they started to get a hold of automatic Thompson machine guns, and they used these in the attempt. Al's bodyguard held Capone down as they shot the place up. One of the assailants even got out of his car to shoot the restaurant on foot, but no one was killed, and they probably at that point should have gone back to pistols, I think.
5,000 rounds.
That one guy looks inside. It's just Al Capone eating lunch calmly inside another limo that's inside the restaurant.
Ah.
Amazing.
3,000 rounds in. Anybody hit anything? No one? All right, let's keep shooting, boys. But remember, never aim your guns at anything, all right?
Yeah, right. No, look, maybe we give George Lucas too much shit.
Right?
though,
Yeah.
honestly.
Right?
It's a good thing they had the machine guns. Finger cramp. God.
Al knew that the hit was called in by the North Side Gang, and he had his men rent rooms across from Jaime Weiss's office.
Jewish.
I guess gangsters needed to get
How
mail,
could you tell?
and they needed a brick and mortar underworld office. So anyway, one day when Jaime was walking across the street, Al Capone's men came out and they gunned him down in the crosswalk. Al, of course, was out of town, and he sent a message with a bunch of flowers to Jaime's associate, Bugs Moran.
Okay, did flowers used to be menacing and we forgot about it? I want to bring that back. I think that's awesome. They could be romantic or menacing. I like that.
It was around this time that Frankie Yale, the hitman from earlier, and Al Capone's first boss, decided to hijack a few shipments of Capone's alcohol in New York. Word gets back to Al, and Capone sends hitmen to the Big Apple, and they murder Yale on the street. Back in Chicago, Moran does the same thing, hijacks some of Capone's liquor. He takes some shipments that belong to Capone, and he earns himself the same prize.
Can I say this truce is going very badly?
Right.
Hey, these crooks and hitmen can't be trusted at all.
Al supposedly plotted out the hit of Moran while he's in Florida, and he planned that day, at the exact time of the killing, he would be in Florida giving a deposition to the state's attorney. The day of the hit was 95 years ago today, and it was called the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. It went down like this. At one of Moran's properties, a garage where liquor was delivered, a shipment of alcohol was expected, and Moran himself was supposed to be there, but he was held up and he couldn't make it. At the time that was designated for the shipment, 4 men pull up outside and they come into the garage. 2 of the men were in plain clothes and the other 2 were in police uniforms. It's suspected that the gangsters inside thought this was a police raid, so they turned around and they put their hands against the wall. At this point, the men who were masquerading as police officers opened fire with machine guns, killing 6 of them instantly and leaving 1 with 14 bullet wounds, and he would die later that day.
All right, guys, nice murder. I brought a really nice arrangement of orchids in hand-thrown pottery.
I was thinking centerpiece for their table? Is that menacingly, right? Would that go? You think that would go?
So I want to be clear, because based on their behavior, are we sure that these weren't cops?
No, we're not. So this hit was a real blow to Moran, who was viewed as weak because he let this sort of thing happen to his men. A few months later, some of the gangsters in Chicago wanted to whack Capone, and Al got word of it. He invited the 3, John Scalise, Joseph Hop-Toad Gunta, and Albert Anselm, to a roadhouse in Indiana for some kind of
Toad?
That's what his in quotes middle gangster nickname is, Hop-Toad. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I'm worried that's a slur that even we don't
Slither
know.
Snake.
I don't know. But anyway, the 3 of them get invited to some kind of banquet at a roadhouse in Indiana. They all come. And at the end of the night, Al Capone beat all 3 to death with a baseball bat and then shot them for good measure.
Okay, banquets, flowers, the accessories budget for gangsters used to be way higher. everybody.
Yeah. Well, that's probably why he had to kill him with a bat, right? He was over budget on the banquet.
I should not have gone for the chocolate fountain. Would you all mind waiting while I kill you with a bat? This is so hard.
Hey, he's beating the first guy. He's like, hey, wait your turn. Huh? Hey, try the veal, actually, while you wait. I'll get over there.
I paid extra for the coffee.
It's fair. I was waiting for this
Please,
fucking veal.
yeah, by all means. Really enjoy it.
That's why I'm killing
can't
you at
take
the
anything-
end. It would have been a total waste to kill you at the beginning.
All of these recent violent outbursts turned what was a somewhat accepting public against him, and he decided to let the steam blow over in jail. No idea why he decided jail and not a mansion in Florida.
Because Florida's worse than jail, Cecil.
Okay, no,
Yeah,
you know what?
obviously.
As I said it, I realized that you're right. He actually arranged for himself and his bodyguard to get arrested on a concealed weapon charge.
All right. I'm grounding myself. No more Nintendo for me for the rest of the day. I deserve this.
I guess he was expecting a mild sentence, but the judge put him away for a year on the charge, and Al ran his business from prison. While he was inside, the government was going after his assets and his colleagues. The president, Herbert Hoover, made it a personal mission to see him prosecuted for something more substantial. His brother, the greasy-thumbed accountant I mentioned earlier, and his underboss, Frank Nitti, were all prosecuted by the federal government for tax evasion and sent to prison while Capone was in jail. When he came out, he was named public enemy number 1 by the Chicago law enforcement.
Which had to be undercut by the fact that they had just released him from jail, right? Just like, all right, you're free to go. But as soon as I can get you back, we're gonna...
He did get a lovely bouquet on his release, though. So that was nice.
Oh, yeah, no, that's true.
Al tried to change the public perception of him when he got out of prison, and it was the beginning of the Great Depression, and he opened a soup kitchen in Chicago that fed 3,000 people a day. It was around this time that Elliot Ness and his Untouchables were doing some PR draining of beer barrels to show that the government was cracking down on Capone. In reality, this was not the thing that brought him down, and Ness and his team of unbribable, untouchable agents were more of just a show than anything else. The real danger to Capone were the tax agents that were looking into his finances.
Right, which is why when you find a good accountant, you keep him even if he hates you and says it a lot.
Hey, Cecil, that was a terrible thing to say about Sean Connery. He gave his life for that collar, okay? Can't believe you said that.
Throwing the book at Al Capone for tax evasion took 5 years. He owned nothing in his name. His house in Florida was owned by his wife, his house in Chicago by his mother. He didn't own the car that he drove. He didn't own any of the businesses he ran, but Al did admit guilt on non-payment of income tax twice. First, he tried to pay income tax to get out of trouble when they were investigating him, and second, when he tried to plea bargain his way out of it. The government rejected his plea and he went to trial. Now, there's a story that isn't in the wiki, but told in another source that at the trial, Al Capone had already bribed the jury pool. But the judge came in that morning and he switched jury pools with the next door courtroom, foiling the plans that Capone had of bribing everyone and getting away with it. Now, no word on how he would know who would be in his jury pool, so this might be apocryphal.
Okay, great work by the judge, though. It's like Johnny Carson not letting Uri Geller touch any of the props. Just be like, all right, I'm going to shuffle the jury now. And now you can go ahead, Mr. Capone. Do magic now. You got this, right?
Pick a juror, any juror.
Lucy.
Al Capone was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. He was eventually sent to Alcatraz, and his days as a gangster were pretty much over. He tried to serve his time quietly without incident, playing the banjo and composing songs for it. But he was stabbed in prison by someone trying to make a name for themselves. James C. Lucas. See how well that worked? We all know who that is.
Yeah, no, obviously.
Or maybe he was just trying to get him to stop playing the banjo. Did you think of that?
Okay. Valid point. At this point, we circle back to Al's syphilis.
Finally. With the whole damn essay.
He had an untreated case of it, and that eventually caused him to have dementia. He was let out of prison for medical reasons after 7 years, and he lived a few more years in the property in Florida. He wasn't sane at this point, and he regressed to a childlike state. He died of stroke-induced cardiac arrest a few years later at the age of 48. The world's most famous gangster had fallen into obscurity.
All right. If you had to summarize what you'd learned in one sentence, what would that be?
Never piss off math nerds. Just don't do it.
Good.
Amen.
Boy, yeah. All right. So are you ready for the quiz?
Shoot.
All right, Cecil. We actually had a platinum night for a citation needed live show at Harry Carey's. It is a steakhouse now, but what was the building used for in the past? A, an illegal slot machine operation. B, a museum for taxidermied animals. C, a bootlegging liquor operation. Or D, a speakeasy owned by Capone's buddy Frank Nitti and home to a series of tunnels connecting the building to the courthouse across the street.
Well, what about E? Rat storage and deep dish pizza dough storage, I think. Probably D. Was it D or all of the above?
It is all of the above.
There you go.
That
All
building
of the
has a storied history.
All right, Cecil, which of the following is my favorite flower-based mobster movie? Is it A, Kill the Irishman? B, Capo di Tutti Papi? C, La Rosa Nostra?
Rosa, I love it.
D, Lilac, Stock, and Two Smoking.
There
so
it
good,
is.
so
Getting
good,
the clappy
so
clap.
good.
E, The Sodfather.
They're all so amazing. I realize that a lot of people don't appreciate your punnage here, but they're all amazing. But D steals the show. Lilac, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
That is a popular choice. I get it. It was actually The Sodfather, though.
Oh,
It's D, actually. Supposed to be for the thing to work.
My favorite was E. There's a real answer.
It wasn't. It actually wasn't, though. Cecil, my favorite part of Al Capone's legacy happened long after his death, when TV host Geraldo Rivera acquired his vault and opened it live on TV after a month of promotion. What did he find inside? A, nothing. B, seriously, it was nothing. C, he wandered around inside on live television for like 4 minutes. Then he was like, fuck, why didn't we tape this?
I remember this. I am not too young to remember this. It is answer D, all of the above.
That is correct. No, it's
sure.
not.
No, it is.
It's the Sodfather.
Winner is Eli, no matter what. You guys fucked up.
Yay!
You won. That's fine.
Because you
I stumped
reminded me
him.
of Geraldo.
I wanted to. All right, fine. Heath, who do you want to write an essay next
Tom?
week?
Yes.
Okay, good. I was about
Damn
to
it.
say, don't go too
All right.
far off script, boo-boo.
Would you like to
We do
surrender
two of
your
these
hosting
tonight.
spot?
There's no script.
Eli.
What do you even? Doesn't even make
All
sense.
right.
A couple of pals joking
Well,
around.
for Cecil, Eli, Heath, and Tom, I'm Noah. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We're going to be back next week, and by then, Tom will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can hear more from us on Cognitive Dissonance, D&D Minus, Dear Old Dad, Scott Awful Movies, Lawful Assembly, The Scathing Atheist, Season Liberally, The Skeptocrat, and Talking Ship. Jesus Christ, did I miss any?
It's a
And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod or leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes. Be sure to check out citationpod.com.
So I catch up to him in the rain, and I say, I don't care what the mob thinks. I don't care what the world thinks. I only care what I think. And I think I love you.
Wow. And then did you and Grandpa get married?
And have been for 33 years, Timmy. And have been for 33 years.
Tom, are you crying?
No, I'm just happy they worked it out.
Yeah, me too.